I'm very proud to be here today. It's really a pleasure to participate in this session on space and defense. And it's my pleasure to bring to you the point of view of the space industry, and in particular of Thales Alenia Space. Perhaps as an introduction, I would like to tell you a few words about Thales Alenia Space. We are one of the leading manufacturers of space systems, space infrastructure. We develop and manufacture satellite and space systems, and we are mostly a European company. We are 8,000 employees located in 10 different European countries on 17 sites. I'm very proud to be here today, also because we have signed, as has just been mentioned, a few months ago, cooperation agreement with the Hungarian government, and we're very proud of having been selected by the Hungarian government to accompany your country in its space journey. I would like today to share with you two personal convictions about space industry, about what space can bring to a country. The first conviction I'd like to share with you is that space is an essential part to answering the needs of our citizens and our governments. And I think space is a very good example of what the Minister just mentioned, that innovation very often is dual use by nature, and the same innovation can answer the needs of the citizens in their daily lives, but also answer to the needs of the governments. And if I take a few examples of that, and start with telecommunication. Telecommunication, connectivity, would not exist today on Earth to the same extent without space. And we see that more and more space assets are essential to answering our connectivity needs. And this is the case for the citizens, with, for instance, broadband connectivity in areas where it would not be economical to bring internet connectivity with terrestrial means. And in the future, we'll need more and more of this connectivity with the Internet of Things, with the 5G connectivity coming directly from space, with connectivity in mobility. And we are developing new generations of assets that will answer those needs. These can be very large geostationary satellites, for which we're developing new generation using the digital processor technologies to build flexible digital assets who can change their coverage during the lifetime of the satellites. We have just launched a couple of weeks ago the biggest European geostationary satellite for broadband, 500 gigabits per second of bandwidth, which will offer connectivity to Europe. But connectivity, and Minister, you reminded it very rightfully, is also key for the needs of the governments, for the needs for the civilian, and also the military needs of the governments. Governments need resilient communications, they need secured communications, and this is key for security, this is key for crisis management, this is key for protection of our borders, of our assets, and of course this is key for our armed forces. As you rightly mentioned, Minister, the weapon systems are now becoming part of an interconnected network, and the resilience of this communication network is ensured by our space assets. And also here we are developing new generation of assets, space assets that answer to these needs. And also here this can be large geostationary satellites that can ensure both the governmental communications or the military communications. We're very proud at Thales Alenia Space of having developed most of the military telecommunication satellites in Europe. We were leading or contributing to a major extent to the projects in France, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain. And we have a large experience on that field. We've also contributed to dual-use systems in several countries in Europe, but also in the world, in Brazil or in South Korea, for example. So we know that to ensure an answer to the needs of the governments, we need to be serious about resilience, we need to be serious about cybersecurity, we need to be serious about encrypting and guaranteeing that the level of encryption is well answered. we are more and more moving also to new architectures of systems based on low Earth orbits. And I think this will also be part of the solutions that we'll see more and more in the future. As we know, the European Commission has decided, the European Union has decided to go forward in that direction with a constellation that would answer also the needs of the different countries and member states of the European Union. And we believe that there's a complementarity between the different systems. Some of them need probably to be national. Some of them can be shared at European level, and there can be a complementarity between these different systems. If I now move to another example of how space is crucial to meeting our needs, I could talk about observation. The Earth observation satellites also here tackle both our needs on the civilian side. You may know that 50% of the data we have related to climate come from satellites. And we're also very proud in Thales Alenia Space to be leading 5 of the 6 missions from the European Space Agency and European Union related to Earth observation for climate change, the so-called Copernicus missions. And by the way, we're also very proud to have been able to embark our Hungarian partner Admatis in many of those missions, and they contribute to a significant extent to the success of our missions on these Copernicus projects. But Earth observation, of course, is also essential when we talk about security, when we talk about defense. And here we're moving to new generations of systems, much more interconnected, allying the different sources of observation, optical observation on one hand, radar observation on the others, and to which we now add electronic intelligence, so the interception of electronic communication. So these 3 pillars of our Earth observation are key, both for civilian and military users. And we also have developed over the years a significant experience building for many European countries, in France, in Italy, in Germany, the Earth observation systems that help the governments for security and defense purposes to know what's happening in the different areas, protect their borders, understand what is happening on the different theaters of operations in the world. Third domain I would like to mention, and I could mention several others, but I would like to focus on a new one, an emerging one, which is the one of how we protect our assets in space. And this is becoming, I think, a more and more important topic. And this leads us to the topics of space surveillance and in-orbit activities. And this is a new field in space that we are developing, where we are still, let's say, at the demonstration phase, at the learning stage. But this is something definitely that will be more and more needed. And also here will be very much needed for civilian users. We need to know and to have a precise view of the orbits and the satellites in orbit to be able to continue to use those orbits. We need to be able to refuel, to repair satellites in orbit. But we also need, for security and defense reasons, to know precisely which are the threats that could happen in orbit. And we need to be able to protect the assets we have in orbit. And we are working on different projects that will allow these new solutions to happen. So these were just a few examples to convince you that space is really at the core of the needs of our citizens and our governments. But the second message I'd like to share with you today is that I'm deeply convinced that space is not just about products, it's not just about solutions, it's about creating an ecosystem that creates value for the countries and the regions in which they are located. And in this respect, I would like to thank Commissioner Ferenc to have recalled which are the principles and the bases of the Hungarian space strategy, which was published several months ago. And I think this space strategy sums up very well how this space ecosystem should be built. And please allow me to comment on a few of these items, which for me are really key if we want not just to allow Hungary to have access to the space assets, but also to use this to create a flourishing space industry and ecosystem. And the first element you mentioned, Ursula, was the flagship programs. And I think this is very important to have these flagship programs. As mentioned by István, I think that we should not oppose the role of state and the role of the private industry. I think we need both to have a flourishing space ecosystem. And in our experience in Thales Alenia Space, these big flagship projects are an accelerator in the development of the competencies in the country and allow to go to a next step at an accelerated speed. We have seen that in several countries where we had these flagship programs, and we were able to build around these flagship programs a strong partnership to help the industry to grow its competencies and help also the academia to develop their training programs. So the flagship programs that you presented, being the Hunor program around the Hungarian astronaut, being the Hungarian satellite, and we mentioned the Karpacsa-sat project, being on the ground, the testing facilities, the ground segments, and I've seen with much interest the announcement that companies in Hungary like RedTech are investing to build a new assembly and test facility. I think it is going in the right direction because we need these flagship programs, we need these flagship initiatives. The second element that I think is essential in the strategy and to which we would like to contribute is the strengthening of the Hungarian industry and the building of the right competencies through the right academic programs. I think both elements are key. And this is a part of our DNA at Thales Alenia Space to build these partnerships. We've done that in other cases. We have started doing so in Hungary. I mentioned the partnership we have built with Almatis. I would like also to mention the one we have built with BHE, with which we are cooperating since several years, and we have embarked them on commercial programs, which is a very good example of the leverage effect that Professor Kovacs also mentioned earlier of the space industry. When you develop competencies, skills in the space industries, yes, you can directly answer to the needs of the governments, but you also create an industry that can export, that can be present and successful on the export market and create value and jobs by developing this competitive product and selling them on the market. So we would be very interested in continuing doing so, continuing helping Hungary develop its ecosystem, developing its industry. To do so, you need skills, you need skilled people, you need engineers, but as you mentioned, we need also technicians, we also need lawyers, we need a wide range of skills in the different space applications. And also here, I believe that the role of the industry can be complementary to the role of academia. We need, of course, universities, centers of research, but industry can also help to bring its very concrete, pragmatical knowledge of the space projects to help train these new generations of Hungarian engineers, technicians, and lawyers. And finally, the Hungarian space strategy, I think, is rightly also built around partnerships. Because in space, you never do things on your own. You always do that in an extended network of partnership. You mentioned the European Space Agency, and I think it can be a powerful tool. And we have had already discussions to see how we can better leverage that tool and be sure that all the investments Hungary is making in the European Space Agencies are really used to strengthen the Hungarian space industry. You mentioned other cooperations. To conclude, as I said in introduction, we're really very proud to be a partner of the Hungarian space program, and we are convinced that this is a key moment. I think key moment for the space age globally, as mentioned by Isvan, but it's a key moment for Hungary, and we're very happy to be part of that journey. So you can count on us to accompany Hungary on that journey. Thank you very much.